With the standard Flash plugin being discontinued in December of 2020, many people across the internet then and since then have been feeling nostalgic for the games we grew up playing during a period class when we really should have been paying attention to our instructors. I myself admittedly am among them, and recently I got the itch to replay some of the old Sword and Sandals games I had not played in, honestly, years. Booting up the collection on Steam, I noticed something a bit odd. There was a new game list under all the others on the list called Grossout. Not sure if that was there the entire time and I just didn't notice it like the big dummy I am, or it was recently added in an update. Either way, I'd never taken a look at it, and what I found actually surprised me. Apparently, the creators of the Swords and Sandals franchise, and yes, it is a franchise at this point, had partnered with the makers of Grossout, a novelty card game not dissimilar to the Garbage Pail Kids card game from the 1980s. This is not to be confused with baseball's greatest Grossouts, which is a separate card game. And that brings to another interesting point. I did do some research on the card game and attempt to try and get some context for you folks, but I couldn't find anything on Grossouts. I found some on Baseball's Greatest Grossouts. That's a well-known novelty card game, but very little on Grossout. It's almost like they were trying to bury it, and the only thing I could really find was that it was made and released by Upper Deck, who still sell the cards, though you have to really dig around at their website because it's really buried. Like they're actively trying to hide it, so I don't know, maybe they're ashamed of it. Personally, if I produced them, I probably would have been, so I can't really blame them. But either way, this partnership between the creators of Swords and Sandals and the makers of this arguably questionable card game led to the creation of Grossout, the Flash game which we're reviewing here today, which used some of the characters from those cards, the best known characters, in combination with the combat engine from Sword and Sandals 2 to make a simple yet disgusting combat-based game. Fitting, considering what kind of cards this game was based on, after all. I mean, even looking at the title screen, you can guess what kind of quality we're in for. After selecting new game, you get to choose between 4 playable characters, some of which are the most recognizable from the trading card game itself. The choice is between Splat, the methamphetamine field mouse, Plugger, the big fat ginger, Skunk, Shaggy's less successful and possibly meth brewing cousin, and middle-aged Scrappy-Doo. I chose to play as Plugger as he was the tankiest option available. I was like playing tanky characters, admittedly. And we opened to a cutscene in which the Grossout gang, yes, that's how the game refers to these characters, as if they were some sort of mystery-solving group, not a bunch of hoodlums like to play in raw sewage for fun, standing on a beach with a half-rotten whale corpse with Scrappy-Doo encouraging the act of cannibalism. So, we're off to a great start right away in this game. Things are starting to look bleak, but thankfully, this at best morally dubious conversation was interrupted by the newly elected mayor of Sludge Valley. Yes, I know, a lovely, not all sickness-inducing name for a town, arriving on the beach with a few friends. Apparently, he wants to clean up the town with an army of genetically engineered yes-men, make it into a capitalist paradise. Of course, as the harbingers of disease, filth, and sepsis, we couldn't let that happen, so we went off to battle the yes-men clones with a human waste-covered stick. And that's the story. You go and upgrade your disgusting gear, your armor, your gadgets, your devices, and battle through increasing amounts of giant clean clones per level, before facing off against the mayor himself in an increasingly hard boss fight at the end of each level, which the game breaks up into chapters. This all is complete with at best mediocre post-battle commentary from a very questionable African-American stereotype, so something about the quality you'd expect from a game like this. To be fair, I didn't really expect much from this story, but when Sword and Sandals 1, which honestly doesn't really have a story, has a better story than this game, that's saying something about the quality of this game, to say the least. While Grossout lacks in story or intact when it comes to dealing with racial relations, I guess you could say it makes up for in mechanical complexity, though I'm hesitant to even say that. Stats for this game are different than most Flash games, with the obvious exception of the game franchise this game is based upon. From top to bottom, stats are as such. Strength. This doesn't actually increase your damage as you would think. Most weapons actually have a built-in weapon damage range, rather than an actual stat affecting them, so to speak. Instead, if you want to use higher quality, and that's an air quotes for a good reason, melee weapons such as the big old rotten Bigfoot foot on a stick, that was a hard sentence to say out loud, You have to meet the strength requirements to use in battle. Same applies to any other melee weapon. More powerful melee weapons require more strength. Speed. This doesn't make you any faster, as the name would imply. Instead, like strength, acts as a threshold on what weapons you can use. If you want to use higher tier ranged weaponry, like a giant butt attached to a bazooka, as you can tell, only the highest quality of weapons in this game, you need to have a high speed stat. Attack. This is just a flat out damage increase as well as accuracy increase when it comes to attacking. So, pretty self explanatory. Defense. Also, pretty standard. The higher your defense, the less damage you take from attacks or abilities. Vitality. This just makes you tankier. The higher your vitality, the more health pool you have, the longer you can last in a fight. Fart Master. This game's equivalent of charisma, because of course it is. A high Fart Master. Okay, I know it's a professional laugh, but I can't say that with a straight face. Lowers the cost of buying gear upgrades, I guess because the stench coming from your rear is so potent that the shopkeep wants to get you out as soon as possible, and gives you a upgrade for, a massive discount because he doesn't want his store stinking like fart. And makes the use of farts, this game's version of a taunt, which does damage or messes with the enemy in different ways, more potent and powerful and likely to hit. Fitness. Your level of fitness determines how far you can jump or move when taking the move action forward or backwards in combat. Devices. A bit weird sounding one, but this skill acts again, much like strength or speed, as a threshold for the use of items. No longer can you just pick up a lovely potion used in combat. No, you have to have a certain level in devices to be able to use that most likely rotten shake to heal yourself in combat. So, you want to use items, and I recommend you do in this game, because Lord knows you're going to need it, you need to meet that threshold. So, definitely invest a couple points into this. Overall, there really isn't that much special about grossout. It's a simple flash game based on a questionable trading card game that uses a combat engine that was quickly considered outdated. But with even all that said, I don't think the game is that bad, per se. I know that might sound a bit odd, considering I spent the last how many minutes bashing on it for lack of quality, but when I say it wasn't bad, I mean that from a mechanical design point perspective. The goal was to make a swords and sandals game from a novelty card product, and they succeeded in doing that. Is the story bad? Certainly. Is the combat boring and repetitive? Indeed. Is the humor so lowbrow that even the mole people who live in the Earth's core would say it's too low? Yes, sir, indeed. But despite all of that, the game still accomplishes its goal and that at the very least should be acknowledged and be worth some points in the end score. However, that still leaves the fact that the game still isn't that very good. The story and combat, the focus of most Flash games, isn't done in a way that most would find fun or enjoyable. Add on the fact that the lowbrow humor can be funny for a little bit. Once that amusement wears off, you start to find the fart jokes and the poo jokes just not that funny anymore, and honestly just very, very childish and annoying. If I honestly had to put a number on how good this game was in overall quality, I'd have to put it on a 4 out of 10. Well, the game does meet its goals and accomplishes the bare minimum you'd have to do to create a functional game in this style. It does lose some points solely on the basis that after the first few 20 minutes of novelty the game has, you quickly realize that this is a really boring and repetitive game, and move on to more enjoyable things. Honestly, would I recommend you spend some of your time checking this game out? If you're a die-hard fan of the Swords and Sandals franchise and really want to check out every little thing they've produced, then you might enjoy this. But if you're someone who's simply looking for a classic Flash game experience, similar to the times you had in computer class when you were supposed to be learning how to use Excel and instead were playing Launch the Kitten or whatever you were playing, you're not going to find it here. There are a lot of classic Flash games out there that have a much higher quality to them. And unless you want to go out of your way to play every Flash game ever made, which I would recommend you do, your life is far more valuable than that, and there's a lot of crap out there, then I'd say try to find something that is a little more well known and put together would be much more worth your time. Thank you kind folks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, and all that. If you like the video, it really does help this channel get off the ground, it being a new channel and all, and help you notice by the algorithm. Feel free as well to leave any suggestions for any Flash games to review, or any feedback you have on how to improve my video editing, or any other aspects of the video that you think need improvement. Doing so would be of great aid to me. Thank you, of course, and have a good whenever you have me watching this video.